With the NFL Combine being this weekend and the NFL Draft being right around the corner, many of the football world has its eyes set solely on the NFL Draft. Well, I want to take this time to remind everyone that the draft is not the only time that you are able to make improvements to your team. So for that reason, I've compiled a list of 4 free agents that I think could make an instant impact on my Carolina Panthers, and we're going to discuss those players right after this.
I'm from the foe. You dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 1K. Trying to get this channel monetized. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to these players. The first player I want to bring up is none other than defensive end Yannick Ngakoue of the Indianapolis Colts, who will be an undrafted free agent this offseason. Now, what do I like about Ngakoue? Well, in 2022, Yannick Ngakoue had 29 tackles, but 9.5 sacks, 16 QB hits, 8 tackles for loss, and all of those stats being in only 15 games. Now, Yannick Ngakoue would undoubtedly come in and be our second best pass rusher. He would undoubtedly take Yetur Gross-Matos' spot, and that should be something that Panthers fans should look fondly towards, because we have needed production in terms of pass rushing prowess from the defensive end position since the departure of Hassan Reddick over a year ago, man. So for a little more context, Brian Burns was the only player on the team with 10 plus sacks. But if you want to whittle that down to just defensive linemen or just defensive ends, he was the only player that had 5 or more. The player that came in second on our team in terms of defensive end sacks was Marquise Haynes, the backup defensive end that played behind Yetur Gross-Matos, as well as Brian Burns. So that just speaks to how inadequate our pass rushing ability has been so far over this last year. And Yannick Ngakoue would come in and be an immediate upgrade to that position. Now, also, Ngakoue is maybe not throughout an entire year's tenure, but he does have familiarity with our current head coach in Frank Reich, as he would be coming over from the Indianapolis Colts. Now, although Frank Reich was fired from the Colts last year, he indeed did have time to go through training camp. He actually brought this guy to the team, and he actually coached him up for about maybe a third of the season. So the familiarity between the two is there. So the transition and the comfort level to coming over to this team and playing for a guy that he already had played for may make this transition for Yannick himself a little bit easier, and make the Carolina Panthers a little more of an attractive destination for somebody of his services. Now, according to Spot Rack, he is projected to be offered at least a 3-year contract worth $28 million and an average salary of $9.3 million, and that would make him the 14th highest in the NFL. Now, I am not going to sit up here and pretend to be a capologist. To be honest with you all, this is not my money, and I don't give a damn about the salary cap. Yes, I'm going to talk about it like it's monopoly money, but if you could suspend your disbelief and all of that for just a second, I believe if we could find the money to pay Yannick Ngakoue or the rest of these players, I think that would be very profitable for my Carolina Panthers. So the next player that I want to move on to will be an offensive player, and that being tight end Evan Engram, formerly of the New York Giants and most recently of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, in 2022, Evan Engram had a career year, the best year of his young career, with 73 catches, 766 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he had a pass catch percentage of 74%, just speaking to how sure-handed he was in majority of his opportunities. Now, to give you a little more context as to why I find the tight end position to be important, in 2022, the Carolina Panthers stable of 3 tight ends only had 42 total catches and a little over 500 yards. So Evan Engram alone outplayed every single one of the guys that we have combined. So bringing him in to be a weapon for either the bridge QB that we have this year, or if we go out and we start the rookie QB that we draft this year, Evan Engram being a safety net right in the middle of the field to ensure that we can get those short yardage downs, the check downs, just being sure-handed and a quick read for a young QB would be absolutely invaluable for a young quarterback's progression. Now, to speak a little bit further towards Engram, he is only 28 years old, entering the prime of his career, and he is an undrafted free agent coming off of a one-year prove-it deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he not only showed, but he proved as well that he is going to be a hot commodity this offseason, being young, being in his prime, and being so productive. Now, to give you all a little projection of the money that we may have to pay to get Evan Engram in Carolina, Spot Rec projects that he will demand a 3-year contract worth $28 million and an average salary of about $9.3 million, which would make him the 14th highest tight end in the entire NFL. But Scott Fitterer, I believe you will be able to move the chess pieces around to make that happen. David Tepper has the money to be able to bring any guy we want here, as long as he can just, backload the contract, just push it down the road. I'm not the accountant, but I have done a little research. It is possible to bring any of these players here, so it is not any need to fret over the salary cap. And Evan Engram, with the production that he had, nearly 1,000 yards, over 70 catches, he is definitely worth that 3-year contract, and I would love to see him come here and continue out the rest of his career with whomever our young QB is going to be for the future. Now, we're going to move on to this next player and go back to the defense. Now, this may be a lesser known player for a lot of the more casual fans out there, especially the guys that are diehard Carolina fans that don't really care about a no-name guy from another team. Zach Allen of the Arizona Cardinals, a defensive end, is a very, very interesting commodity heading into this offseason. To give you all a little peek behind the curtain in terms of how this guy has performed so far, in 2022, Zach Allen had 47 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 20 QB hits, and 10 tackles for loss. So that just means that he pretty much lived in the backfield, terrorizing quarterbacks and disrupting run plays in the backfield. Now, although he may be relatively unknown, this guy would be a very welcome addition to this team for the same reasons that I mentioned Yannick Ngakoue being a welcome addition to this team. Now, in 2022, PFF graded this guy, I believe, somewhere in the middle to upper 70s. I do not have the exact number, but for context, that would have been higher than every single defensive lineman we had this year outside of Derek Brown. And yes, that includes that he was graded higher in terms of PFF, for however much you value their grading scale, higher than Brian Burns, our star Pro Bowler who is going to break the bank pretty soon. This guy, according to them, was more productive, and he only appeared and he got all of these stats in just 13 games. So these stats would have been even higher if he would have had the additional 4 games for him to have played. Now, to give you all a little context about the potential contract he may demand. Now, similar to Evan Engram, Spot Rack or Spot Track, however you prefer the enunciation, projects that he deserves 3 years, $27.9 million at $9.3 million a year, and that would make him the 22nd highest paid defensive end in the entire NFL, and bringing that type of talent in before it can be realized in terms of market value, to get this guy who is just coming of age, coming off a career year, still relatively unknown, and locking him in for less than $30 million for 3 years would be absolutely amazing for Scott Fitterer to pull off, and it would definitely be an improvement to this young, still growing defense. Now, the last player I want to talk about, we're going back to the offensive side of the ball, and I'm pretty sure it's a guy that you all have heard of before, that being former Miami Dolphin, Cleveland Brown, and most recently New Orleans Saint, Jarvis Landry, wide receiver from LSU. Now, 2022 was not the greatest year for Jarvis Landry, as he was on a 1-year prove-it deal with the New Orleans Saints, hoping that he could play his way into a bigger, more lucrative contract. He unfortunately had a season that was plagued with injuries, so he was only able to get 25 catches for 272 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, that was in 9 games, but a little more context for those 9 games, because he didn't even start in those 9 games. He only played 301 snaps, which is by far the least in his 5-time Pro Bowl career. So he was not able to prove it on his prove it deal per se. So moving into this next offseason, nobody, including the Saints, feels as though Jarvis Landry has done enough to demand another large contract. So he is back in the same boat that he was at the beginning of 2022, having to play on a prove-it deal. And I would love it if he was able or willing to come and do that in Carolina. Him being the veteran player that he is, although he has had an injury-plagued season as of late, he is still only 30 years old, a 5-time Pro Bowler, and as we are in the market for a young quarterback, bringing in a guy of this caliber that can hold down that slot position and just be able to be a safety net for a young guy that may not necessarily make the best decisions, but having a guy that seems to always find his way open would just speak great volumes for the amount of progression that we would be able to see out of a young rookie quarterback if we did choose to start him the entire year. Adding Jarvis Landry beside DJ Moore would make this receiving core so much better than it has been in previous years, with the hopeful emergence of Terrace Marshall Jr. on the outside, having DJ and Terrace on the exterior, with Jarvis Landry holding down the middle as a 5-time Pro Bowl vet looking to prove it and earn money in the future. I think that could be a very prosperous offense, and bringing him in on a deal that could the deal that he had in 2021 was a 1-year, $3 million deal, fully guaranteed, and he did not even live up to that. So I cannot imagine that the Carolina Panthers would have to pay any more than that, and just maybe the same 1 year, under $5 million for a wide receiver the caliber of Jarvis Landry is just too good to pass on, especially trying to get guys in the building that will serve as security blankets for a young QB. This move it speaks for itself, and if it's on the table, we should definitely go do it, man. But that is the video. Those are my 4 free agents that I think could make an immediate impact on my Carolina Panthers. What do you all think about these 4 potential additions? Do you think we should go out and get these guys? Are there any other names out there that you think would be interesting? Or, these are names that I possibly think could come. These won't have to be any blockbuster trades or any. These are guys that we could just trade in free agency. If there are any other guys that you all think could fit this mold, I would love to discuss it with you in the comment section. And with that being said, man, I'm Jamario Rashad. Like the video. This is the way I see it. And I'm out. Peace.